morning, everybody. This is Lorraine.
And Jennifer Denny.
And today we're going to talk about pictures.
The entire internet's on pictures, well, words too, but
But it really is. It's so interesting because I remember early days of the internet and it was all text based. Facebook was text based, which is really hard to imagine.
Yeah.
But it was all about the words, and now it's not. Now it's definitely about the pictures.
Well, like this phrase is nothing new, but it really does. When you see a picture, you in your mind imagine, different scenarios, and that's why it's so important.
And you've written a blog post recently about some research on just how fast people process images.
Yeah, so there was an MIT study with neuroscientists. Fun fact, I was going to be a neuroscientist. And people process images as quickly as 13 milliseconds. So it's super fast. And you think about how people are scrolling, you don't have a whole lot of time to impact someone from stopping from scrolling and be engaged with what you want them to be engaged with.
Absolutely. It's kind of, the brain is fast, the feed kind of sped up to allow us to do that, and it's on all the platforms. But it's also it's not just on social media, it's in our entire lives. We're going to process visual information.
We've been forced as a society, just to process things fast because we have the internet. And so, you have to, in your design, be simple, but yet effective because you don't have a whole lot of time.
Absolutely. And so, I really want to point out, it's not just social media. When you think of Google search,
Oh, yeah.
some, is it 15, 20, 25% of all searches now are image search. So somebody types in a word, but instead of looking at the text, what they're looking at are the images, and they're like, oh, that looks like a picture of what I want, so I'm going to click on that first.
Yeah, and Google actually just not super recently, maybe like 6 months ago, on your Google Ads, now you have what's called an image extension. So you can actually add an image to your Google ad. So obviously they see the value of having images as well.
Absolutely. And, not just, I mean, it's one of these, chicken, egg, which came first, who did what. But there's also a lot of data that says that when people do image searches, there's a higher click through. In other words, when they search for something and they specifically go to that image tab, they're more likely to actually pick something.
Because the pictures are worth 1,000 words. Grab someone's attention.
So, as you're thinking, let's say, of your website, and we're going to jump back to social media, but as you're thinking of your website, those featured images on your page, they have to be tagged and titled correctly. You can't have an image called JPEG 1 because you know what? Nobody goes to the internet to look for JPEG 1.
That's a very good point, and that's why that matters, for SEO.
But also, let's talk about the nightmare of, okay, I'm committed. I'm going to create an image or a graphic.
Mm-hmm.
What size do I need?
A crap load. We kind of talked about this before, but with every different platform, either organic social media or ads or what have you, there's tons of different sizes that are available. And it's important to get that down, choose one for each type of platform, and stick with it. Have branded templates that you can use over and over and reduce the amount of time, because let's face it, almost every place has a different size that they need. So you've got to become efficient with that.
And I found, I love this. This is a great little cheat sheet that I found. This was created by Constant Contact, and it just shows you sort of all of the, oops, I messed up the link there.
That's all right.
I'm
We're
gonna,
live.
yes, I'm going to do the link again. There we go. Because I just ran it together with the word. But this really shows you, okay, so for Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and you can see if you're going with landscape or you're going with more of a square or a portrait. You really need to kind of look at this chart and as Jen said, make decisions. I do not create 3 Facebook images for every blog post. That's like a special kind of crazy.
You can't. Like, we have to be very efficient as marketers because there's so many places to be. And I know, before the show, you were mentioning, which I agree with, square images.
Mm-hmm.
They take up more space on a mobile device. So square images tend to do better, in my opinion, than landscape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I found actually it's weird on like LinkedIn Live. It's the traditional, what I would call the traditional YouTube size video.
Yeah.
But if you want to put a video in your timeline, something that's a little bit either square or more portrait actually displays better. And so even within the same platform on the same kind of medium, you're still finding those differences.
Yeah. I think the next thing to talk about, with pictures is how you come up with the design and what you use in there. And my mind always goes to make sure first you fully understand who your avatar is, who your audience is, and you start with that audience in mind when designing the images. What are they going to respond to?
And I totally agree. I recommend going and looking at all of your competitors and look at their timelines. And don't just do your competitors in this market.
Mm-hmm.
If you run a law firm, or you run a coaching business, or you run a plumbing business, I don't care. Go and look at people who do what you do in other markets that are similar. So, like if you're in Indianapolis, don't look at New York City. That's a very different, it's a very different market. It's a very different
vibe.
Different vibe. But look at Des Moines, look at Detroit, look at Columbus or Cincinnati.
And I always like to say, like, look for inspiration, but don't copy.
Mm-hmm.
Be different.
Yeah. Well, and also, do some screen grabs. Grab all of those images from these different competitors and then put your image next to it. And ask people, would they notice yours? Don't just do it based on your friends and family and the people that love you most, because of course they're going to see your logo.
Yeah.
But do a little research and figure out, do you stand up? You don't have to be up here if they're here, but do you stand out? Are you compelling in that space?
Whether or not you want to admit it or not, people are attracted to beautiful design. Mm-hmm. So it needs to be part of what you're doing, and you're thinking about all the way back to that 13 milliseconds. Mm-hmm. If I only have 13 milliseconds to get someone to stop and look at what I would like them to look at, you have to have a good design.
And I think you used a word, beautiful design. And I think sometimes graphic designers get trapped in that, where the design is beautiful. It looks great on their computer screen in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. And this is where you kind of have to balance between the experience of the designer and the gut instinct of the business owner. You don't want a giant logo in the middle of you don't need a giant logo in the middle of your ad, but you need to be able to see the logo. You
Yeah.
need to be able to identify it as appropriate for the brand. One of the things that I ran into is I've had some really talented designers that I've worked with who, like me, are subtle. Now, I know in person I'm not subtle.
I was like processing that in my head, like, well,
Yeah, okay.
I don't
But
know.
my design aesthetic is subtle, it's simple, it's clean. And the problem is I was looking at my graphics. Oh,
Mhm.
yes, my cat has decided that he's got an opinion on this too. But I was looking at my graphics in the timeline and realizing they weren't standing out because they weren't in your face enough.
Mhm. Sometimes you have challenges with people and they don't want to be in your face, but in your face is what gets people's attention. And there's
Mm-hmm.
different variations of in your face. So think about contrasting colors. Like think about bright colors. Think about, something that's going to make it pop. Think about an image that's going to make you stop scrolling because it's different. If
Mm-hmm.
you've got things that look like you're from a bank, no offense, banks, then it's going to be too boring. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and people are not going to stop and look at it.
A little bit. It's interesting. We did some research, and this goes back a long time. But I was running a series of live in-person classes, and I had two graphics. One was your traditional, "Hey, this is our schedule," and it was bright and big colors. And the other was a picture of two kittens, and the text on the image said "free kittens." And then in the body, we explained, well, we're not giving the cats away, but you can come and take the classes, and we'll have our office cats there.
That's awesome.
We did both of them. Now, this was the piece that really surprised me. We did both graphics on Facebook and on LinkedIn.
Uh-huh.
Which one do you think did better on LinkedIn, and which one do you think did better on Facebook?
Probably the branded one did better on LinkedIn and the kitty cat did well on. No?
No,
Well, because it was
okay,
different.
that's what I thought. But the cats actually did incredibly well on LinkedIn. People thought it was funny. They got
Because it's
it.
different.
It's different.
Different.
On Facebook, let's face it, cats are a dime a dozen.
Well, if you run with the crowd and you do what everybody else is doing, then you're going to look like everybody else. If you try to push the envelope and go outside, it might not feel safe. It might feel different, but you're going to get somebody's attention.
Yeah, and I mean, and it was still on brand for us at the time because it was still kind of a little quirky and funny, and it's still it wasn't completely left field,
Mm-hmm.
but it was enough to catch people's attention. Whew. So
We've talked a lot.
we talked a lot about pictures. If I think this is a great time to wrap up. But if you're trying to figure out images for your Google Ads or just Google in general, definitely check out elevatedmarketing.solutions.
Yes, and digitaltoolbox.club has lots of tools in there for all business owners trying to learn how to get better at marketing.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.